in the NFC South, this is, I think, going to be one of the more loaded divisions that we have in the not only the NFC but the entire NFL. You have three teams that I think are playoff contenders. You have two that I think are true Super Bowl contenders. I don't think you can say that about some of the other divisions. The AFC South has some good talent with the Texans, the Titans, and the Colts, but I think, can you say that one of those teams is a true Super Bowl contender? Whereas I can say for sure that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New Orleans Saints are both legit Super Bowl contenders. And let's start with the Saints. They're my pick to win the division. And they're a team that's my favorite to go to the Super Bowl to face off against Kansas City Chiefs. And they're a team that I've been high on for the last several years. I know they've had an ugly loss this past year in the playoffs against the Vikings, losing at home to a Vikings team that, has a lot of talent, but no one really thought that if you put those two teams together, that the Vikings would get not only beat them but handle them. And I guess that's why you play the game. But the Saints to me are a loaded team. They were good to begin with, and they got even better. Just look at the offense. You add Emmanuel Sanders. One of the biggest needs, in my opinion, for the Saints was that number 2 wide receiver opposite of Michael Thomas. And they went out and they got Emmanuel Sanders in free agency, a guy that could come in, work down the field, add some speed to that receiving core. Michael Thomas is one of the best in the NFL working the short to intermediate routes, and now you got a guy opposite of him who really complements him well. So I think that's really going to improve this offense. They add Cesar Ruiz to go in at right guard, a guy that's athletic that can kind of complement what they want to do moving on from Warford. And so the offense, if the Saints offense can get any better, it did. With those additions. Defensively, they continue to add pieces. Getting Malcolm Jenkins is a good fit for what they want to do. I like them drafting Zach Bond. The defense continues to the young guys continue to get better, and they almost got Jadeveon Clowney. They didn't. If they would have got Jadeveon Clowney, they would have been my clear-cut Super Bowl contender for the NFC. But regardless, they are my pick. I think they're my number 1 seed in the NFC. I love what they did. They still got Drew Brees. Drew Brees is back, wanting to make it to one last Super Bowl, and I think that the Saints can do it this year. Now, the team that is going to give them the biggest fits and the biggest push is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and why not? Adding Tom Brady was the story of the offseason, getting the 6-time Super Bowl champ to come to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to join up with Bruce Arians, one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. And Brady's joining a loaded offense. Just look at the weapons they have with Mike Evans, dominant contested catch outside receiver. You got Chris Godwin. A lot of people are like, oh, who's going to be his Welker? Who's going to be his Edelman? He's got one of the better slot receivers in Chris Godwin on that team, a guy that can come in and dominate the middle of the field. I think you're going to see a different type of attack with him. And then you add in the tight ends. Yes, Gronk is there, but I think Gronk's going to play a limited type role within this offense. And you're going to see a guy like O.J. Howard, I think, really take that next step. O.J. Howard was a guy that I absolutely loved coming out of college. He was a top 10 prospect for me in that year. He went 20th overall. Hasn't had the career that we would have thought out of him. He's been used primarily as a blocker. I really think in this offense with Tom Brady, learning from Gronk, we're going to see a huge step forward for O.J. Howard this year, and I'm expecting big things out of him. Now, if there is a weakness on this offense, I'm looking straight at the offensive line. The interior is not bad, but the tackle positions were a huge concern coming into the offseason. I love that they took Tristan Wirfs to be their new right tackle. I think he's a guy that's going to plug and play, one of the top tackles. He was my second-rated tackle in this class. I thought you plug him in at right tackle, but he's still a rookie. And he's going to have to start day one. And he's going to have to protect Tom Brady, who's not very mobile. And They like to run a lot of 7-step drops, deeper drops. So he's going to have his work cut out for him. We see a lot of the top pass rushers coming off of that right-hand side. So he's going to need some help. Maybe it's a guy like Gronk and O.J. Howard kind of chipping and helping him out. But they've got to give him some help. Then you have on the left side, Donovan Smith, a guy that's kind of struggled. He's had his hits. He's had his misses. Can he step up his game to protect Tom Brady? I think if you're going to look at the weakness, it's those two guys. Can they do enough to keep Tom Brady clean, allow him to step up in the pocket? If they can, this offense is going to have a whole lot of success. If they struggle, it's going to be not good for Tom Brady. Defensively for the Buccaneers, they've got some pieces. Shaq Barrett emerged last year as a dominant pass rusher for the Bucs. They've invested a ton in the secondary. They've got good linebackers. But they still have some questions, and if their offense is able to score, I think the defense will do enough to help them win games. But if they get into some battles where they have to get some stops, the Bucs kind of worry me a little bit. Yes, they've invested a lot in their secondary, but do they have a true shutdown corner? Do they have guys, they've got a lot of talent, but no one is elite. Defensive line, you got Ndamukong Suh, you got Vita Vea. Who's that third guy? Are they going to need a third guy? Who's the pass rusher opposite of Shaq Barrett? Those are the questions I have. And I think this defense has got a lot of good pieces. I love Todd Bowles as a defensive coordinator, but do they have enough? Do they have enough to get them over the hump? I think they have enough to get them into the playoffs. They're one of my wild card picks, but do they have enough to get them to the Super Bowl? When it comes playoff times, and you can't score a ton of points on these defenses, can this defense rise up, get stops when they need them, and win a game if they have to? And that's my big concern. That's why I have the Saints over the Bucs to win the division, and that's why I have the Bucs still going to the playoffs, but maybe not reaching quite the Super Bowl. The third team to kind of keep an eye on is the Atlanta Falcons. On paper, the Atlanta Falcons look like a team, as I mentioned at the beginning, that could go to the playoffs. You got Matt Ryan, you got Julio Jones, you got Todd Gurley. They've invested a ton in their offensive line. The offense is loaded. Calvin Ridley. They got Hayden Hurst from the Ravens. But can they get guys to stay healthy? Can Matt Ryan play at a consistent high level? Does Todd Gurley have anything left in the tank to play like he did a few years ago? Or has injuries robbed him of his career, and why the Los Angeles Rams discarded him? Defensively, the Falcons have been a team that's been kind of ravished by injuries the last few years. You saw guys like, Deion Jones and Keanu Neal and Ricardo Allen. They've had injury issues that have caused them, to miss games, and I think that's really taken a hit off of this team. But once again, they have talent, and if they can stay healthy, this team has playmakers at the on the defensive side. Now, they need a better pass rush. Pass rush has been one of the biggest issues that we've seen out of them the last several years. Vic Beasley, who they drafted in top 10, was a guy that looked like he could take that next step, be a premier pass rusher. That didn't work out. He's gone. Okay? Tac Mckinley, another guy that they drafted early on in the first round. A guy that's kind of been hit or miss. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option. This is a big year for him. Do they have enough to rush the passer? Okay? They invested a first-round pick in the cornerback from Clemson, AJ Terrell, a guy that I really liked, but it was maybe a little bit of a reach. Is he going to be able to come in and provide a lockdown guy? He's perfect for this defense, but is he enough to come in as a rookie and be their shutdown guy? Can he give them what Marcus Lattimore gave the New Orleans Saints when they made that big jump? Now, I say all these things about the Falcons, but the thing that kind of remains is this team, it just seems like something's missing, especially with the coaching staff. A few years ago, they made the playoffs, and Dan Quinn looked like one of the top up-and-coming coaches. And since then, they've struggled. They had those injuries, and then they cleaned house, fired offensive coordinator, fired defensive coordinator, special teams coach, whatever it was. And since then, they've really kind of struggled to get over that hump. And I think all that coaching transition really hurt. Now they got a new offensive coordinator again. It's just, to me, I just think all the stuff going around, all the stuff with the coaching staff, I think that really limits what they can do. And that's why I have them third. And that's why I kind of think, for as talented they are, they'll win games. They'll play well at times. I think they're just going to be far too inconsistent. I think they miss the playoffs again. And don't be surprised if the Falcons are looking for a new head coach for the 2021 season. All right, and kind of rounding things out with the NFC South is the Carolina Panthers. And I think the Carolina Panthers are a team that could be picking number 1 overall in the 2021 NFL Draft. Now, there's a lot of buzz around the Panthers, and they got Matt Rule. Matt Rule has been a long time NFL coaching candidate. A lot of teams have wanted him. The Giants really wanted him bad. The Colts really wanted him. The Browns did, and he's kind of turned him down. He finally made the jump from college to the pros with the Panthers. He brings with him Joe Brady. Joe Brady, the boy wonder from LSU, was a offensive intern with the Saints, comes to LSU, helps revamp their passing attack. LSU runs the table, wins the national championship, loaded with NFL draft picks, and now Joe Brady is the offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. So there's a lot of buzz around him. And for as much buzz as there is, I just don't know if they have the pieces right now to win at a consistent level. They spent their entire 2020 NFL draft on the defensive side. And I like a lot of the picks they made. They got Derek Brown, who's going to be the anchor of the defensive line. They got Jeremy Chin, a safety linebacker, kind of a poor man's Isaiah Simmons, a guy that I really liked. And they just, every single pick last year in the draft was to build up the defensive line. And a lot of good moves that I liked. But they didn't bring in anybody veterans on the defense. So you're relying on a lot of rookies, a lot to play key roles. And are those rookies going to be able to do that? Are they going to be able to come in and make this type of impact? And then you look at the offense. You bring in Teddy Bridgewater. And Teddy Bridgewater has been a solid, good NFL quarterback, but he's not a guy that's going to go out and win you games. We saw what he did, and, he's able to take a team with the Minnesota Vikings to the playoffs, but they were reliant on Adrian Peterson. This past year with the Saints, he was able to win games, but he also had a ton of talent around the Saints with him. What can he do with the Carolina Panthers? They got Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey. He's got some talent, but I don't think the offensive line's that great. I don't think, the weapons, he's got pieces, but is DJ Moore a true number 1 receiver? Can Robbie Anderson provide more than just a deep threat? Maybe he's a good deep threat, and he complements what they want to do. But I just think with the issues they have on defense, the kind of lack of sizzle they have on offense, a couple coaches getting used to the NFL game that they haven't been there for a while, I think this is a recipe for the Panthers to not have a good season, but I don't think it's bad because they could be sitting at that number 1 overall pick, maybe that 2nd overall pick, and they're looking at a potential franchise quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, maybe Trey Lance, of guys that they want to build their franchise around. This franchise is doing a reboot. And as much money as they gave Teddy Bridgewater, he could be grooming their next franchise quarterback he's got this season. Maybe he's grooming him and being a bridge starter for next year, and then we see that quarterback take over next year or the year after that, and Bridgewater is a veteran backup for this team. So